Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you very much. When I got here this morning, I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble. You are all journalists with very fancy presentations. We are in the Design Hub. I'm a researcher. I'm a researcher from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. My slides are not visually attractive, they are simple, to the point, but I hope that at least I can explain you something which is interesting for all of you. Anyway, let's hope so. My name is Matamala. I'm a woman in her early 50s, round face, heavy built, glasses, wearing a blazer and a black shirt. And why do I say that? Because most of you can see me, but maybe there are people in the audience who have sight loss and cannot see me. So what I'll try to do is integrate audio description in my presentation. I'm here to present the ENACT project. This is a project that we are doing with some colleagues from other broadcasters, for instance, 3CAT. And well, what I will try to do in 20 minutes is 4 things. First, this project is about easy to understand news, so I'll try to explain what easy to understand language is. The second thing I'll do is I'll briefly present you the ENACT project. This project started in December, so as you can imagine, we don't have lots of results, but we did a survey, and we have the results of that survey, which is the third point I'll present. I won't bore you with lots of percentages, but a few I will, yes. And then I'll conclude with some final thoughts. So let's start by clarifying what is easy to understand language. Easy to understand language, and I'm using an ISO definition, is any language variety which enhances comprehensibility. That's, in other words, that makes things easier to understand by our audiences. And this aligns very well with some of the things that have been mentioned today. In the last presentation, there was a woman, 55 years old, there was a text on screen referring to the fact that she gets bored reading because it's too difficult. Okay, so any language variety that enhances this comprehensibility, we refer to it as easy to understand language. For me, that's an umbrella term. We would have most simplified varieties, what has been traditionally called easy read, easy to read, easy reading, maybe this rings a bell, to the less simplified varieties, which we normally call plain language. Easy reading is for persons who have difficulties reading, difficulties understanding for any reason. Maybe there is a person with an intellectual disability, or maybe I'm very stressed now that I'm presenting and I cannot read everything properly. Normally, easy to read and so on research has been applied in the written text. What's interesting is when we move to audiovisual content, to oral content, how we do that. On screen, an example from Inclusion Europe of an easy to read text. I'm not going to be reading that, but there are pictures that illustrate the text. The text is aligned to the left, and they are short sentences. And the vocabulary is easier, so these are some examples of an easy read text. Plain language, on screen, an example that I will definitely not be reading because we don't need to. Just by looking at that, we see on the left a text, full text, very long text. I will get bored reading that. On the other side, the text is structured. There are bullet points. That reminds me of the presentation this morning from the Netherlands on that simple news that they were creating. Please contact me because I don't have you on the radar. That's very interesting. So I think the concept is clear, easy to understand the umbrella term, and we have different levels of simplification. What about ENACT? ENACT is the project Easy to Understand News for Collaborative Transformation. On screen, logos, disclaimers, and codes that we need to put in all presentations. And this project started in December. I will tell you a bit more about it. First of all, why this project? We had an interest, broadcasters, researchers, to reach new audiences. And I think this is a this is a common feature, what we've seen today. No, we need to reach new audiences. There is a social responsibility also for broadcasters, and this is why many of you are implementing SDH, subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. You may be implementing audio description, you may be implementing spoken subtitles or audio subtitles, and even maybe some sign language interpreting. But we can go a step further, and we can look into these easy-to-understand language varieties. So this is a way to go beyond this more, I would not say widespread, but at least more known access services into new ground. And in fact, at the beginning before we proposed this project, some broadcasters were already providing this service. There were two previous projects that paved the way for ENACT. One was a project I led in 2018, the EASY project. I invite you to check the website, webs.uab.cat/EASY, and the platform, transmediacatalonia.uab.cat/EASY. In this project, what we wanted to do is see how we can merge the concept of easy-to-understand language with audio description, subtitling, and journalism. We created skills cards, suggestions for training, and in the end, there is a wealth of training materials that are available for you online that you can use, that you can download and change as long as you acknowledge that this is from the EASY project. I was talking to a colleague from 3CAT saying that he was checking this content, and it's quite useful. I hope it's so. There was another project, CELSI. You will find more information on celsi.eu. Some colleagues started researching about spoken easy language. We know quite a lot, well, a bit, let's put it this way, about easy written language, not so much about how spoken easy language should be. So this project provided some guidelines, focusing mainly on interaction. So with this background, RTV Slovenia put together a project together with ORF, with Latvia's radio, and with 3CAT, the Catalan television, one university, the Autonomous University of Barcelona, which I represent, and also an association from Italy, Uniamoci. So what are the objectives of this project? The first objective is, you see what I meant by the simple slides, right? It's the typical PowerPoint smart art. Anyway, the general objectives is to foster a collaborative transformation across borders by exploring the development of easy-to-understand language news in three main settings: radio, web, and television. So it's about collaboration, it's about changing, and it's about having an impact on three different areas. But also, if this works, we hope to achieve a more diverse and pluralistic media environment and increase media literacy among diverse audiences in the digital environment. So the specific objectives have to do with this upskilling, this collaboration. So there are lots of exchanges, and we want to learn about what the others are doing. There is also this specific objective to create cross-border guidelines. This is what we'll do at the end of the project. We'll create a hub where you will have all this information available. We hope to develop new audiences, so reach persons who may not be watching standard news. And of course, we want to disseminate this easy-to-understand journalism, which is what I'm trying to do here with you. So this project started in December. As you can imagine, after 2-3 months of getting it, started. During this year, the first year, 2025, what we are doing is mapping what's happening out there and also changing practices. So what we've done is a survey, which I will summarize in a second. Then we have a training program, so we have workshops and we train journalists and so on. And there are also this exchange program going on. So some broadcasters from the Catalan television, from Slovenia, from the Autonomous University, and so on. Last week they were in Riga, checking Latvia's radio, how they do that. Then they will go to to Austria in June, then to Latvia, and so on. So it's a very good opportunity to see what others are doing in their working place and see what you can actually reuse for your own environment. The second stage, that will be next year, what we'll do is gather user feedback and co-design these best practices. We'll have a website, a hub, where you will see examples. But I want to highlight that we'll be doing that with users. Okay, so we need to involve users, we need to know what works for them. Okay, I'm on the third part of my talk, which is the ENACT survey. I will not be describing all the survey, that would be a bit too much, but I will mention some data about the profile of the broadcasters who replied to the survey, the offer, languages and recommendations, how they select the news for this easy-to-understand news, the audience, and the challenges and future plans. And if you want to know more, or if you want more details, we are finalizing the report at the end of this month, and then it will be uploaded on the website. That will be also going live at the end of this month. So, we contacted many of you, actually, through EBU, through CIRCOM, and through others. We sent an email, and some of you gladly replied to our survey. Thank you very much, because I think we promised it would be a bit shorter than it was actually. So we got 39 valid responses, 69% broadcasters, but we also targeted associations that create this easy-to-understand news content. 20 countries are represented, and yeah, I have the list here, but it will take long, so then at the end I can mention that. Otherwise, I may forget someone and it can be a bit tricky. In terms of the offer, of those who replied, 56% said that they are offering easy-to-understand news. So from all this sample, actually, only, or I don't know whether to say only, but 13 broadcasters acknowledge that they are creating easy-to-understand content according to their understanding, and there are 9 associations. This is mainly done on written content, also on the website. That's what's there right now, but many of them are planning to offer audiovisual content which is easy, and again, the website is the natural outlet for this content. There are other percentages on screen. I can share that with you later if you want, but that's a bit the idea. Actually, what we found is that except for some broadcasters such as Finland, most of them started in the last 5 years. So some of them are creating easy news for the radio, and then they include a transcript on the website, Latvia's radio. RTV Slovenia, for instance, are producing 2 or 3 articles per weekday on the website. ORF are having like 5 news articles in plain language on the website, written version of a weekly radio program, and so on. Well, we have different examples that you can check on that report. The languages represented are 15. Because some organizations offer content in 2 languages. So in Finland, for instance, they acknowledge using Swedish and Finnish. In Spain, they may use Galician and Spanish, or Spanish and Catalan, and so on. And what's interesting is that we ask them, what do you offer? Easy news, easy language, easy to read? Remember what I tell you at the beginning, plain language. Most of them refer to easy language. Some also say plain language, but this is what the replies, these are the replies that were included in the survey. We would like to check that, whether that fits our understanding of these concepts. We asked them also if they are following, that's it, any guidelines. 40% don't, the rest do. And basically, for instance, people working in Spanish, they follow national standards by a national organization. Some of them refer to IFLA, easy to read associations. In Germany, they refer to B1. Actually, I think this morning there were reference to this common framework of languages in terms of simplification. Others have internal guidelines, and so on. So there is a wide variety. One thing that was interesting for us was to check what type of news they would select for this easy-to-understand news. So associations, there is a strong preference for local news. That's what their users want. National broadcasters, they tend to choose all types of news. They didn't mention a specific type of news. And regionals, again, very diverse responses, so it was not very clear. What I find quite interesting is the target audience. Yes. So when we ask, okay, who are you producing this easy-to-understand language content for? Very often, there is a reference to persons with intellectual disabilities, which are the traditional target audience for easy read, for instance. But I think that's what's quite important and relevant is that there is an increasing awareness that this is not only for persons with disabilities. This easy-to-understand language can benefit many people, can benefit migrants, refugees in a new country learning the language, can benefit language learners. I always put an example. I studied German a long time ago. I forgot, my German is gone, but if I read plain language or easy language news in German, I can understand them quite a bit. So I think there's also a potential for all these migrants, language learners, and so on. And also older people with cognitive decline. We've seen in the previous slides, we don't want so much content. It's too complex. So maybe this easy-to-understand language is not this is for persons with intellectual disabilities. This is for many people, okay, in certain circumstances. We ask them if, okay, remember the ones offering this easy-to-understand news, we ask them if they ask for feedback. 64% do, but this feedback takes different forms. They refer to research, they refer to surveys, they refer to social media, and so on. And then one interesting thing is whether they involved persons with disabilities, for instance, in the creation or validation process. According to the data they're providing, this is self-reported data, 35% involve them in the creation, so they actually have persons with disabilities choosing the content, for instance, and they also report that they are involved in the validation, okay? Validation taking different forms, sometimes checking that works, but also sometimes providing feedback. But I have to tell you that this happens very often in associations. Remember that here I'm referring to broadcasters and associations of persons who produce this type of content. Bear with me, one more slide with data, and then I'll conclude. We wanted to know about training, and most of them, 82% said that, yes, they had received training on that, but it's not very formal training. I think that universities, we may be lagging behind. We are starting to offer these offers of courses on easy-to-understand language, and it would be very good to integrate that in the curriculum of future journalists so that they are aware of these specificities. And this morning we were talking a lot about AI. There was a good example of how AI can be used to simplify content. We asked them, okay, do you use AI or do you plan to use AI? And half of those creating this content, they do use AI as part of their workflow. But some actually don't consider that. So I think, as it was mentioned this morning, there's still a lot of room for discussion, for seeing how AI can be integrated. Yes, that's my last slide, but I'll take a bit longer here. I think that, well, this is just 5 months we've been working on that. There are many challenges that we've already identified, but also many possibilities. There's this discussion, okay, how do we integrate the accessibility principles and the journalistic principles? I think this needs further discussion, but this can be done. There are examples of how this is done. We've seen a lack of awareness. I don't know if all of you were aware of easy to understand news. If not, I think this is something we need to keep doing, raising awareness about the possibility of creating this easy to understand news for diverse audiences. But in order for that to be a reality, we need to provide training. We need to have contact with target groups to understand what their needs are, what works for them, what does not work. And then we need to work on clear guidelines. There are other things to consider. Sometimes when they said, okay, this is not in our plans, very often there is a reference to lack of means. So in a way, we need to make sure that this is included in the strategic plans of the broadcasters, so that then there are means to actually do that. Some of them were, again, not aware of these modalities. And as I said, for many of them, this is not a strategic priority for now. One interesting thing for me is that, as I mentioned before, I think we need to be aware of the diversity of audiences we can reach with these new formats, okay? And I think we have an opportunity for broadcasters to collaborate with companies, to collaborate with us, academia, as we are doing in this ENACT project, to come up with new formats or existing formats that can be improved and expanded that benefit diverse audiences. On screen, a slide full of text with all the acknowledgements and disclaimers, and that will be the end of my presentation, and I will be glad to take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. We love your presentations and your slides.
Sorry?
We love the presentation. Yeah, really, for sure. Very clear slides. So, okay, so this screen is not working anymore, but if you have any questions for Anna, we'll be taking a couple of questions. Okay, is the mic working? Okay. Okay, so this one is not working, but we can read like this. According to the ENACT project, what specific criteria define a piece of news as easy to understand?
Okay, ENACT has not defined it yet, but what we did was ask our partners how they would, what features should an easy to understand news have.
So like a checklist.
Yeah. Okay, and luckily I printed that in case, I mean, this is not a prepared question, I can promise that. But I think I have some of those things here. Let me just, we use simplified language, okay? So, now I'll just improvise because I don't know where it is. Simplified language. If it's written, it's better, for instance, to have it aligned on the left, short paragraphs so that it's easier to read, bullet points for certain content. These are, don't use abbreviations. That's another very typical example. If we go to the spoken, easy to understand language, some say that we should talk not so fast, okay? Make pauses. At the university, we are researching that. And we are finding that, yes, talking maybe a bit, not at a very fast pace is good, but if we talk too slow, it's not good. It does not have an impact. Yeah. But again, we need more research to actually provide data.
Okay. Do you think that more simplified news bring less news avoidance, linking with the previous conversation?
That links very nice. Actually, when I was listening to the previous speaker, to Joanna, and there was on screen that piece of text from a woman 55 years old from the north saying it's too complex, I'm not going to watch that. So I thought that links very nicely with our presentation. So hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Don't you think AI in a short future easily can simplify a new text for the users? Do we need to do it as a journalist? So
I think AI can help a lot and definitely can be included in the workflow. What we need to know is how to include that. Does it work for all the languages? We were talking this morning about minority languages. Maybe the resources for English are fantastic and we'll have very easily simplified news. Will it be the same for Catalan? Will it be the same from Basque? Will it be the same from Welsh? To put 3 examples. So yes, I think we need to explore how to integrate AI in the workflows. but we cannot forget about the human. I'm a translator. I'm from the Faculty of Translators. So this morning when you were talking about all the translators and so on, I thought, yes, we can integrate technology, but there needs to be a human in the loop. If not, tell us to our interpreting colleagues there.
Hey. Non-stop working. Yeah, it's also a nice link between what we said before, minority languages, new speakers, and also, yeah, this approach, right? So we can help.
I think that links very nicely because our societies are more and more diverse. We have lots of migrants who are learning the language. So for instance, I think of Catalan. If we can provide some easy to understand news in Catalan, that will benefit also the people who are learning the language. But an important thing is that we don't need to provide childish content. That's very important. It's content for adults, it's just that it's easier to understand. And that's a very important point to make, I think.
Thank you so much, Anna. It was